Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about a very useful Lead4ward report. I'm going to be talking about the Lead4ward Leadership Report Card and Teacher Learning Report. And I know that's a mouthful, but it's a very, very useful tool. It's also available to both teachers and principal level users, and it provides useful data over time within the Lead4ward TEKS clusters. And you can get that data by cluster, by subcluster, and by TEK. And I do want you to know that it may not be fully working at the moment for ELAR and SLAR due to the switch over to the new tested TEKS, but be patient with it. I think it's going to give you some very useful data. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use this for math. You get into Aware, whether you're a principal or teacher level user, go down to the bottom of your Analyze tab below everything else, and you'll see this Reports. If you click there, you'll see different reports. Right now I'm in a teacher's account, and so the first thing I see are teacher reports and teacher Lead4ward reports. You're going to be looking over here underneath the Lead4ward reports. Whether you're a principal or teacher level user, please be aware if you have campus level access and you're a teacher of record, you will have an additional set of reports down here that will probably just say Lead4ward reports. Please know that if you click on the one that says teacher Lead4ward reports, if you're a principal level user and you have a teacher of record, you have a classroom, a course assigned to you, then you will only be able to get data for that class that's assigned to you if you look under teacher Lead4ward reports. So just be aware if you have both roles. So I'm going to click right here. It's this yellow and green one, leadership report card. And then you have to tell it which grade level and subject you want to get information for. I'm going to go to 5th grade math. And then you have several different options. You have 3 different checkpoints that you can get data for. So you can choose to differentiate between STAR or local assessments. And by local, we mean any of your campus level assessments or district benchmarks or district unit assessments, anything that you have in Aware. The only thing that you cannot get, I believe, is you probably cannot use your teacher test data for this report. So just a little plug there to convert those teacher tests to team tests. Okay, so thinking about what kind of data to put into these checkpoints, you can do any combination of STAR or local assessments. It can be all STAR, it can be all local. It truly depends on what kind of information you're trying to get. I like to, at the very least, start with STAR tests, historical STAR test data as my first checkpoint. And depending on how many years of data you have on your students, maybe for the particular level number of years the TEKS have been around, you may do a different number on here, but I'm going to go ahead and do 4 years back. And what that is going to do is that is going to, at the very least, populate 4 years worth of STAR data here, and I can choose to take out certain years if I wanted to do that. And then underneath local, if I click here, choose test type, it gives me all kinds of different options, and I'm going to populate 2 district benchmarks. Oops, I got to switch that to local, and then switch it to district benchmark. Now, when I hit the next button, it will populate all the tests that fit those criteria. Okay, so I'm going to leave these 4 years of historical math STAR data. And then I'm going to look over here. These are all of the district benchmarks. Now, because this is a 5th grade math teacher, I might choose to keep those hyper-accelerated class data in there, or I might choose to take it out. And then I'm going to look at these, and I don't want to put both of them. If I put both of them in here, it would average all of that data. But I want to see maybe over time how those students are doing, if they're getting better from October to January. Then I have some additional options. You can filter by specific demographics if you're interested in that, if that's if that's related to your campus plan and you're trying to target those students for growth. So once you have gotten all the assessment data in there that you would like, click Show Report. And then you'll see first a summary sheet that pops up. On this overall leadership report card, I can see several different things. First of all, I see the names of the TEKS clusters that are given to us from Lead4ward. Here for 5th grade math, I also see these carets next to these 4 TEACS clusters, and those are indicating, if you follow the Lead Forward Rock and Review, those are indicating the most highly tested TEACS clusters on the STAR test, and therefore they might warrant extra special attention. So the next thing that I can notice is I can see how they're doing on process standards, on tools to know and ways to show. And then I also get my quintile analysis, and I'll go over that in just a second. And then I also have a reminder about what data is in each of these checkpoints. Okay, so then once I look at that, I can see how they're doing on these process skill over over the course of these 3 checkpoints. Now, I don't believe the process standards were included on the district benchmark, and so that's why you're seeing NT there. That means not tested. Okay, so for example, I can look at this one TEACS cluster representing and comparing whole numbers and decimals, and I can look and see average of historical STAR data, 64%, to 74% on the October benchmark to 83% on the January benchmark. And that just shows dramatic improvement in this TEACS subcluster over time, which is a very positive thing to note for these students. Now, the other thing that I notice is here on one of these most highly tested TEACS clusters is whole number operations. Historically, the students for the last 4 or 5 years have gotten about 64%. On the October benchmark, this group of students only got about 53%. And then I see in the spring benchmark, they've gone down to 50%. So that just lets you know that they're starting to lose some ground, and that might be something that needs to be addressed through intervention and tutoring. The other thing that I like to look at is this quintile analysis. Now this one goes down, and if you follow Lead Forward, then you understand how they group students and break them up into as evenly as possible 5 equal groups. Quintile 1 is all of your lowest scorers, all the way up to quintile 5 is your highest scorers. Now, usually we look at do a quintile analysis, and we look at the actual names of students within here, but for this leadership report card, we're really only interested in their overall averages. So for example, across checkpoint 1, which were all of the historical STAR tests for the last four years, the lowest quintile of students were averaging 32% as their average score. And then in October, the average of quintile 1 was 31%, and then the average of quintile 1 on the January benchmark was 30%. So they're starting to lose a little bit of ground here. I like to look at this quintile analysis for these 3 different checkpoints because it gives you an overall health status check on how you're doing in growing students over time. Then, after you've looked at this overall report card, you can break it down into specific TEACS clusters to look for more information. So for example, this whole number operations, where I'm noticing that they're starting to lose some ground, I can come over here and click here, and then I'm going to see a whole lot more information broken down by TEACS subcluster. And this is what I was referring to, that you're probably not going to get all of this full TEACS subcluster breakdown on ELAR and SLAR yet. Hopefully that should be worked out as Lead Forward studies the new tested TEACS more. But within whole number operations for this 5th grade group of students, I can look through here and see how they're doing on estimation across these different checkpoints. I can look at the readiness TEACS because they're listed in green to focus my attention a little bit more. Sometimes they'll say that data is included in a different TEACS subcluster, like over here, decimal operations. You get your overall TEACS subcluster, how they did across all of those TEACS within that subcluster, and then you can break it down by specific TEACS. Another thing that's useful to look at on this leadership report card is the heat map by standard type. So they've broken it down by all of the readiness standards and grouped them together, and the supporting standards and the process standards. And you can look across 5.2b and see across those checkpoints how are they doing, and you can see that definite increase. The purple boxes represent any averages that are 65 or higher. Another thing that you can look at is the source data. It'll tell you for each of the checkpoints for each TEAC how many tested questions there were, so that you can see, for example, this one only had 1 tested question, whereas this checkpoint for this TEAC had 4 tested questions. So that's how you can use the leadership report card in order to measure student progress of your current students across TEAC subclusters. And now I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing, but examine your own teaching practices and see if you are getting better over time in these different areas. To do that, we can go back to the beginning by clicking on Home. And that just lets us re-put in our criteria. We could change our subject if we wanted to, and we can change any of our checkpoints. I'm going to leave the same subject, but now I'm going to do all STAR tests. So I'm going to get rid of those previous checkpoints. I'm going to click the plus sign. I'm going to take off local because I want to actually get the STAR test. I just type in the word STAR and then come down and select it. I've got to take off the year and it will pull up other STAR tests. So I can select different STAR tests. And then let's say that I have only been teaching this grade level 3 for 3 years. So I'm going to put last year's STAR test, 2 years ago the STAR test, and I will take off these so that I just have these 3 STAR tests, 1 STAR test for each checkpoint. If you've been teaching many more years than that, you could put maybe year 5 and year 6, year 3 and year 4, year 2 and year 1. You can go ahead and do that however many years in the past that you have done it. I click Show Report. And now I'm comparing multiple different groups of students over time to examine my teaching practices and see if I am getting better. So that's the leadership report card. It's a really valuable, useful tool for data analysis. If you have any questions about how to populate this report or how to interpret it or all the different combinations that you might use in order to investigate how your students or how you as a teacher or your teachers are doing over time, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Wendy Dela Cruz and my email address is wdelac@neisd.net. Or you can reach me on my office phone number 210-407-0067. Thank you.